The sun baked the dusty streets of Cairo as Amun Khateb clutched the worn envelope containing his inheritance, $2 measly. Laughter followed him through the marketplace, whispers of pity and mockery trailing like shadows. At 35, he had become the village joke, the man whose father left him nothing but disappointment. But what they didn't know was that the envelope also contained a weathered map, faded hieroglyphics, and a cryptic message about wealth beyond the clouds. That night, as Amun stood on his rooftop watching the sunset paint the horizon, a shimmer caught his eye, something impossible floating among the gathering clouds. A golden pyramid, suspended in air, visible only from the exact spot where he stood. The midday sun beat down on Amun as he guided a disinterested group of tourists around the base of the Great Pyramid. His voice, once passionate about Egypt's history, had grown mechanical after years of reciting the same facts to visitors who cared more about Instagram photos than ancient wisdom. And here we see the precise stonework that has mystified researchers for centuries. Amun gestured, noticing several tourists had wandered off. Only an elderly American couple still listened politely. "Didn't your father work on these pyramids?" the woman asked, squinting against the sunlight. Amun's smile tightened. He was an archaeologist, yes, more focused on theoretical aspects. What he didn't mention was how his father had become known as the cloud chaser among fellow archaeologists. Khateb had abandoned respectable research to pursue his obsession with ancient texts, mentioning pyramids that touched the realm of gods. The academic community had labeled him delusional. $2, sneered a voice as Amun collected his meager tip from the American couple. It was Turak, another guide. Another generous day for the son of the madman. Amun pocketed the money without responding. $2, the same amount his father had left him, along with a mountain of debts and a tiny apartment filled with chaotic research materials. Back home, Amun hung his jacket beside his father's old field coat. Unworn for years, the small apartment was cramped with stacks of books, maps, and bizarre artifacts his father had collected. Academic journals with his father's theories crossed out in red ink, rejected grant applications, and always those drawings of pyramids floating impossibly among clouds. Amun pulled out his father's old pocket watch, tarnished brass with strange markings that didn't match any known hieroglyphic system. The family's only heirloom, yet it didn't even work. Another of his father's treasured but worthless possessions. A knock at the door revealed Layla, carrying a small container of kashari. Her family owned the cafe below his apartment, and she'd taken to bringing him dinner since his father's funeral 3 months ago. "You missed lunch again," she said, pushing past him. Tour group didn't tip. $2, Amun said with a bitter laugh. "The magic number that follows me everywhere." Layla's eyes softened. "Your father was a good man, Amun. Brilliant, even if he threw away his career chasing fairy tales." Amun finished, more sharply than intended. He softened. "I'm sorry, it's just all these papers, these theories. What am I supposed to do with them?" Layla picked up a drawing of a pyramid with stars arranged in specific patterns around it. "My grandmother used to tell stories about temples in the sky," she said quietly. "Not everyone thought your father was crazy." Before Amun could respond, another knock came. Opening the door revealed a well-dressed man with silver-streaked hair and an expensive watch. "Mr. Khateb, my name is Farid Nazari. I was an admirer of your father's work. May I come in?" Reluctantly, Amun let him enter. Farid's eyes scanned the apartment with unsettling intensity. "I've come to make you an offer," Farid said, examining a papyrus fragment on the wall. "I collect unusual artifacts. Your father's research materials. I'll pay £50,000 for them." Amun's breath caught. That amount would clear his debts and provide months of security. "Why?" he asked suspiciously. "These are just the ramblings of a visionary," Farid finished. "Your father was closer to the truth than anyone realized. The inheritance he left you, it contained a map, didn't it?" Amun's hand instinctively went to his pocket where the envelope remained. Farid noticed. "I see," the man smiled. "Consider my offer. I'll return tomorrow." He handed Amun a business card and left. Later that night, unable to sleep, Amun spread the mysterious map on his small desk. The hieroglyphics made no conventional sense, but as he absent-mindedly fidgeted with his father's pocket watch, he noticed something odd. One of the symbols on the watch matched a marking on the map. Holding the watch over the papyrus, Amun was stunned to see that its edge created a perfect circle around a cluster of stars drawn on the map. When he aligned the watch's hands with two lines on the map, other symbols suddenly seemed to form a pattern. "The stars," he whispered, remembering his father's obsession with astronomical alignments. "It's not just a location, it's a time." The pocket watch, apparently worthless, was actually a key to reading the map. Amun felt a chill as he realized that perhaps his father's worthless inheritance was anything but. The halls of Cairo University echoed with students' voices as Amun made his way to the archaeology department. His father's old colleague, Professor Hassan, might be the only person who could decipher the strange symbols on the map. Assuming, of course, the professor would even see him, Amun paused outside the office door marked Dr. Mamun Hossan, Ancient Egyptian Astronomy. His father and Hossan had once been close friends before his father's obsession with sky pyramids created a rift between them. After a curt enter, Amun stepped into an office lined with books and star charts. Professor Hassan, now in his 70s with a white beard and tired eyes, looked up from his desk and frowned. "Khateb's boy," he said flatly. "I attended the funeral. My condolences." "Thank you for coming," Amun said. "I need your help with something my father left me." The professor sighed. "If it's about his theories on floating pyramids, I'm afraid. Just look at this, please." Amun carefully unfolded the map on the professor's desk. Hassan's dismissive expression froze. He reached for his glasses with suddenly trembling hands. "Where did you get this?" he whispered, tracing the symbols with a weathered finger. "It was in my inheritance." Along with this, Amun placed the pocket watch beside the map. Professor Hassan's eyes widened. "This constellation pattern and these symbols." He abruptly stood and locked his office door. "What else did your father leave you?" "Just these items and $2. Amun replied bitterly. The professor began pulling reference books from his shelves. $2, of course," he muttered, flipping pages rapidly. "Your father was always fond of wordplay. $2, not the money. It's a homophone. To Thoth, the god of wisdom and writing." For the next hour, Professor Hassan pored over the map, occasionally consulting ancient texts. "These aren't standard hieroglyphics," he explained. "They're astronomical notions combined with a priestly script used only in sacred texts." He pointed to a series of symbols. "This refers to the pharaoh's final chamber, and a treasure beyond mortal comprehension. But this section here," he frowned, squinting at faded marks. "Some elements are missing or too faded to read." "Can you translate the rest?" Amun asked. "Parts of it. This section speaks of a gateway that appears only when specific stars align." Hassan studied the pocket watch. "And this device appears to be a specialized astronomer's tool, disguised as a common watch." As they worked, Amun noticed the professor growing increasingly animated, his earlier skepticism fading. "Your father wasn't completely delusional," Hassan admitted reluctantly. "These calculations are astronomically sound. There are indeed ancient texts, referencing structures that exist between Earth and the realm of gods, though most scholars interpret them metaphorically." A knock at the door interrupted them. Hassan quickly covered the map as a student assistant delivered a message. After the student left, the professor looked troubled. "Someone was asking for you at the department office. A collector named Farid Nazari. Amun 10. He approached me yesterday offering money for my father's research." "Be careful," Hassan warned. "Nazari has a reputation for acquiring artifacts through questionable means. If he's interested in your father's work..." Before Hassan could finish, Farid himself appeared in the doorway, smiling coldly. "Professor Hassan, what a fortuitous meeting. I see you're helping young Mr. Khateb with his inheritance." "This is a private consultation," Hassan said firmly. Farid stepped into the office uninvited. "I've increased my offer, Mr. Khateb. £100,000 for all your father's research materials." "They're not for sale," Amun replied, gathering the map. Farid's smile didn't reach his eyes. "Everything has a price. You live in near poverty while sitting on what could be the greatest archaeological discovery of our time. Think carefully." After Farid left, Professor Hassan looked deeply concerned. "You must complete your father's work before Nazari gets involved. Take the map home and examine it under moonlight. Some pigments used by ancient priests only reveal themselves under lunar illumination." That night, Amun waited for the full moon to rise. When its silver light spilled through his window, he carefully laid the map on the floor in the moonbeam. Slowly, previously invisible markings began to glow with a faint blue luminescence. New symbols appeared, revealing exact coordinates in the western desert and a precise date and time, just 1 week away. The text referred to where Earth meets sky and the gateway to the realm of Osiris. Amun's heart raced. His father hadn't been chasing a fantasy. The map showed a real location, a specific astronomical alignment, and perhaps incredibly the way to a pyramid hidden among the clouds. Amun sat in Layla's cafe the next morning, the map hidden safely in his jacket. The place was empty except for an elderly patron dozing in the corner. "You look like you haven't slept," Layla said, placing strong Turkish coffee before him. "I need to tell you something, but you'll think I'm as crazy as my father," Amun replied. Layla glanced around, then sat across from him. "My grandmother saw a pyramid in the clouds when she was a girl," she said quietly. "The family never believed her, except my father." Amun stared at her. "You never told me this. Would you have believed me?" She smiled sadly. "My grandmother described it exactly as your father's drawings, golden, floating among clouds, visible only from certain places at certain times." Amun slowly pulled out the map. "I need to be at these coordinates in 6 days, during a specific astronomical alignment." Layla studied it. "The western desert. That's harsh terrain, Amun." "I know, but I have to go." The cafe door chimed. Professor Hassan entered with a young woman, carrying a laptop. "My granddaughter Nadia," he introduced. "She's an astronomer at the observatory. I thought we might need her expertise." Nadia, with intense eyes and practical demeanor, opened her laptop. Grandfather explained about the map. "These star configurations are fascinating, a perfect alignment that happens only once every 100 years. She displayed a celestial simulation. The alignment begins in 6 days and lasts approximately 4 hours. If something is going to appear, that's when it will happen." Their planning was interrupted by the sound of breaking glass. Amun rushed to his apartment upstairs to find the door ajar and the place ransacked. Books were scattered, furniture overturned, and a window broken. His father's research was in disarray, but the map and watch remained safe in his pocket. "Farid," he muttered, surveying the damage. When he returned to the cafe, Layla looked frightened. "This is getting dangerous." "There's more," Professor Hassan said grimly. "I made inquiries about your father's storage unit." "What storage unit?" Amun asked, confused. "The one he rented 3 months before his death." Hassan handed him a key. The rental fees were paid in advance for a year. The storage facility was in an industrial area across town. Inside the small unit, they found expedition equipment, desert gear, camping supplies, astronomical instruments, and a steel case containing old journals. "He was preparing for an expedition," Nadia observed, examining the equipment. "High-quality gear, proper supplies." Amun opened a journal labeled Final Expedition Notes. Inside, his father had meticulously documented his research on the Sky Pyramid, including references to the Brotherhood of Horus, an ancient secret society tasked with guarding the pyramid's existence. The Brotherhood was mentioned in some obscure texts, Professor Hassan confirmed. Scholars dismissed them as mythology, but your father believed they were real. Layla picked up an amulet with a falcon symbol. This matches a drawing my grandmother kept. She said it belonged to guardians of the Sky Temple. As they loaded the equipment into Hassan's van, Amun noticed a dark sedan parked across the street. "We're being watched. Farid's men," Hassan said. "He's not someone who gives up easily." Back at Layla's cafe, they formulated a plan. Nadia would calculate the exact timing of the alignment. Hassan would gather historical references to the Brotherhood of Horus. Layla would prepare supplies. Amun would study his father's notes. That evening, while examining the pocket watch more carefully, Amun discovered a hidden compartment in the case. Inside was a tiny scroll with his father's handwriting. "The true inheritance is not gold, but knowledge. Trust the watch when stars align." Later, as Amun walked Professor Hassan and Nadia to their car, he spotted someone ducking into shadows across the street. "Farid knows what we're planning," Hassan said gravely. "We must leave for the coordinates before he can mobilize resources to stop us." "Why is he so determined?" Nadia asked. "The Brotherhood texts speak of power beyond mortal comprehension hidden within the pyramid," Hassan explained. "If even half the legends are true, whoever controls that power could reshape history." That night, Amun couldn't sleep. His tiny apartment, once suffocating with his father's obsession, now felt like the starting point of an extraordinary journey. The mockery he'd endured for years might soon be vindicated. He stood on his rooftop, watching stars wheel overhead. The pocket watch felt warm in his palm, as if responding to his thoughts. For the first time since his father's death, Amun felt a sense of purpose. Whether the pyramid was real or not, he would follow the map to its conclusion. In the darkness, his father's voice seemed to whisper, "The stars will guide you home." Dawn painted the Cairo skyline gold as the team loaded Hassan's weathered Land Rover. They had left before first light, hoping to evade Farid's surveillance. 4 days to reach the coordinates, Hassan said, studying maps spread across the hood. "The terrain gets increasingly difficult after El Baharia Oasis." Amun watched the city shrink in the side mirror, remembering a childhood expedition with his father. He'd been 10, riding in a similar vehicle into the western desert. The ancient Egyptians believed pharaohs built special monuments to reach the afterlife, his father had explained. "Not all of them were on the ground." "That's impossible," young Amun had replied. His father had smiled mysteriously. "Many impossible things become possible when you know where to look." The memory faded as they left paved roads behind. Hassan navigated confidently, while Nadia monitored their GPS coordinates. Layla sat beside Amun, both watching the landscape transform from scattered settlements to open desert. "My grandmother said the Brotherhood members in our family were always women," Layla mentioned. "They passed knowledge through generations, keeping records of when the pyramid appeared." "Why didn't you tell me this before?" Amun asked. She smiled sadly. "Would you have believed me? Besides, my grandmother's records were incomplete. The last confirmed sighting was over a century ago." By midday, heat shimmered across sand dunes. They stopped to check the engine, which was running hot. "We need to conserve water," Hassan warned, examining their supplies. "If we break down out here..." A strange sound interrupted him, a low humming, almost musical. Everyone froze, listening. The sound faded, leaving only wind whispers. "What was that?" Nadia asked, scanning the horizon. No one answered, but Amun noticed his father's pocket watch vibrating slightly in his pocket. They continued driving until sunset, making good progress. As they set up camp, Amun studied his father's expedition notes. One passage caught his attention. "The desert holds markers for those who understand their significance. ancient waypoints guiding pilgrims to the Sky Temple. Looking up, Amun noticed unusual rock formations arranged in patterns matching symbols on the map. These aren't random, he realized, they're waymarkers. The next morning, disaster struck. The Land Rover's transmission failed with a sickening crunch. "We can't fix this here," Hassan confirmed after inspection. "We're still 30 miles from the coordinates." "We continue on foot," Amun decided, shouldering essential equipment. "We have enough supplies if we're careful." The journey became brutal. Daytime temperatures soared while nights turned bitterly cold. They rationed water strictly, following the ancient waymarkers Amun identified. On the third day, exhaustion took its toll. Professor Hassan stumbled, nearly collapsing. "I'm slowing you down," he gasped, as they helped him to shade. "We rest here," Amun insisted, setting up their remaining tent. As afternoon heat peaked, a strange phenomenon occurred. A sandstorm appeared on the horizon, but instead of the chaotic fury of typical storms, this one formed a perfect pyramid shape, hovering above the desert floor. "That's not natural," Nadia whispered, recording the phenomenon with her camera. The sandstorm dissipated after minutes, leaving the air strangely charged. That night, while others slept, Amun noticed his pocket watch glowing faintly. Following its pull, he walked a short distance from camp and began digging in the sand. His fingers struck metal. Brushing away sand revealed a copper disc inscribed with the falcon symbol of Horus, identical to the emblem in his father's notes about the Brotherhood. "We're on the right path," he whispered to himself. By noon the next day, they reached the exact coordinate. A flat, unremarkable stretch of desert greeted them. "This can't be right," Layla said, confusion evident. Nadia checked her instruments. "No, this is it. We're exactly where the map indicates." They scanned the barren landscape, finding nothing unusual. No structures, no ruins, no markers, just endless sand. "What now?" Layla asked as they set up camp. "We wait," Amun replied, studying the pocket watch. "The alignment happens at dawn tomorrow." That evening, as stars emerged in breathtaking clarity, they shared what each hoped to find. "Proof that ancient Egyptians possessed knowledge we've lost," Hassan said. "Scientific evidence of construction techniques that defy current understanding," Nadia added. "Confirmation of my grandmother's stories," Layla smiled. When asked, Amun hesitated. "Understanding," he finally said, "why my father dedicated his life to this." Later, taking first watch, Amun spotted distant lights moving across the desert, vehicles approaching from the south. "Farid," he confirmed, waking the others. "We have company." The eastern horizon paled with approaching dawn. Amun checked his father's notes one final time as the team prepared for the alignment. According to the calculations, they had a window of precisely 4 minutes when the stars would perfectly align. Farid's convoy stopped about a mile south, Nadia reported, lowering her binoculars. "They're setting at equipment. They won't reach us in time," Hassan assured, though his voice betrayed uncertainty. Amun removed the pocket watch, feeling it grow warmer in his palm. The minute hand began to move counterclockwise, contrary to normal mechanics. "It's starting," he whispered. The first ray of sunlight breached the horizon. Simultaneously, the stars Sirius, Orion, and Regulus formed a perfect triangle in the fading night sky. Amun held the watch skyward as his father's notes instructed. For a breathless moment, nothing happened. Then, the watch began vibrating violently, its internal mechanisms whirring. A beam of light shot from its face into the sky, splitting into 7 distinct rays. "Impossible!" Nadia gasped, scientific certainty crumbling before her eyes. High above, clouds began gathering with unnatural speed, swirling into a vortex. The morning sky darkened, as if returning to night. Within the cloud formation, something massive took shape, golden edges catching the dawn light, perfect geometric angles emerging from vapor. A pyramid materialized in the sky, its base perhaps 500 feet across. its golden surface gleaming impossibly. A thin beam of light extended from its apex to the ground directly before them, creating a connection between earth and sky. "Your father was right," Hassan whispered, tears streaming down his weathered face. All these years, Layla clutched the medallion around her neck. "The guardian of the sky temple returns," she recited, as if remembering an ancient prayer. In the distance they heard shouts as Farid's team spotted the phenomenon. Vehicles roared to life, racing toward them across the desert. Amun studied the beam of light, touching the ground. Acting on instinct, he stepped forward and placed the Copper Brotherhood medallion where the light met sand. It began to glow with the same golden luminescence as the pyramid above. When he held the pocket watch over the medallion, both objects levitated, spinning in midair. The light beam widened, and within it, crystalline steps materialized, an impossible staircase spiraling upward toward the floating pyramid. "We need to climb," Amun said with sudden certainty. "Before the alignment ends, that's at least 1,000 feet up." Nadia protested. "Those stairs are hanging in midair." Amun placed his foot on the first step. Despite its transparent appearance, it felt solid. "They're real." Behind them, the rumble of approaching vehicles grew louder. Farid's convoy was now less than half a mile away. "We don't have much time," Hassan urged. "The alignment will end in minutes." Amun began climbing, followed by Layla, then Nadia. Professor Hassan came last, his age momentarily forgotten in the wonder of discovery. As they ascended, each step they passed vanished behind them, preventing pursuit. When they'd climbed about 100 feet, Farid's vehicle skidded to a halt below. Men poured out, led by Farid himself, his face contorted with rage and disbelief. "Khateb," he shouted up at them, "you don't understand what you found. Come down and we can negotiate." Amun continued climbing without response. The steps felt increasingly insubstantial as they rose higher, creating the sensation of walking on air itself. Below, Farid's men were setting up equipment, strange adizes pointed at the pyramid. "They're trying to force their way in," Hassan panted, looking down. The Brotherhood texts warned of this, those who attempt to enter without following the proper path. The staircase began to tremble. Far below, one of Farid's devices emitted a pulsing beam toward the pyramid. "They're destabilizing it," Nadia warned. "We need to hurry." Higher they climbed, the air growing thinner, clouds passing through the transparent steps. The pyramid grew larger above them, its surface covered in hieroglyphics that seemed to shift and change when viewed directly. Finally, they reached a platform before massive golden doors inscribed with the Eye of Horus. Amun's pocket watch pulsed with light in rhythm, with symbols on the doors. "The text spoke of this," Hassan whispered. "The entrance to the Sky Temple, where only the worthy may enter." The doors were seamless, with no visible handle or mechanism. As they caught their breath on the platform, the staircase below disintegrated completely, leaving them suspended in the sky with no way down. "Now what?" Layla asked, staring at the imposing entrance. Amun studied his father's pocket watch, then the medallion. Together, he realized, placing both against the door in specific positions, indicated by matching symbols, the massive doors began to open, revealing a golden corridor extending into the heart of the floating pyramid. From within came a warm light and the scent of lotus flowers and ancient incense. "My father made it this far," Amun said with certainty. "Now we finish what he started." The golden corridor stretched before them, walls inscribed with hieroglyphics unlike any Amun had ever seen. The writing seemed to shift when viewed from different angles, revealing new layers of meaning with each glance. "These aren't standard hieroglyphics," Professor Hassan whispered, his voice echoing strangely. "This is the sacred script mentioned in the Edfu texts, supposedly used only by the gods themselves." The team moved cautiously forward, their footsteps making no sound on the crystalline floor. The corridor widened into a vast chamber whose dimensions seemed to change as they walked. Pillars stretched impossibly high, supporting a ceiling that appeared to contain actual stars. "It's bigger inside than outside," Nadia murmured, her scientific mind struggling with the impossibility. At the chamber's center stood 4 massive statues of jackal-headed figures. Anubis, the guardian of the underworld, each facing a cardinal direction. The statues, at least 15 feet tall, were carved from obsidian, so black it seemed to absorb light. "The guardian chamber," Layla read from an inscription. "The texts in my family spoke of this. 4 guardians judge the worthy from the unworthy." As they approached the center of the room, the air thickened. The eyes of the jackal statues began to glow with amber light. With a sound like stone grinding against stone, the 4 massive heads turned in unison to face the intruders. "Seekers of knowledge," the statues spoke in perfect unison, their voices resonating not in the air but directly in the minds of the team. "To proceed further, you must prove yourselves worthy." The floor beneath them transformed, the solid crystal becoming transparent, revealing a seemingly bottomless abyss below. 4 trials for 4 seekers," the guardians continued. "Each must face what they fear most." Before anyone could respond, the chamber dimmed. When light returned, they found themselves separated, each facing one of the jackal statues alone. Amun stood before the northern guardian, his companions nowhere in sight. "Amun Khateb, son of Ibrahim," the statue spoke, "you have lived your life in your father's shadow, both resenting and admiring him. Now you must solve the riddle he could not." The statue presented a puzzle box, covered in hieroglyphics. "What is built on truth, rises through doubt, and can only be seen by those who believe." Amun studied the box, recognizing his father's notations in the margins. This was where his father had reached, and apparently failed. For a moment, doubt paralyzed him. If his brilliant father couldn't solve it, how could he? "Time passes, seeker," the guardian warned. "Fail, and join those who came before." The floor began filling with sand, rising rapidly around Amun's ankles. Across the chamber, Nadia faced the Eastern Guardian, presented with a celestial map unlike any she had studied. "Astronomer," the statue addressed her, "you measure the heavens, but lack faith in what cannot be measured. Identify the star that never was." Layla confronted the Southern Guardian, who showed her a series of brotherhood symbols. "Guardian's daughter," it intoned, "your family abandoned their sacred duty. Restore the broken chain." Professor Hassan, breathing heavily before the Western Guardian, faced a wall of ancient text. "Scholar," the statue challenged, "you have studied the words, but missed their meaning. Find the truth within the lie." The sand reached Amun's knees now. He examined the puzzle box again, rotating it in his hands. The hieroglyphics shifted with each turn, revealing new patterns. His father's notations indicated he had tried logical approaches, mathematical sequences, astronomical alignments. Suddenly, Amun understood. His father had approached the puzzle as a scholar, not as a believer. The answer wasn't logical. It was spiritual. "Faith," Amun said, looking directly into the jackal's glowing eyes. "Faith is built on truth, rises through doubt, and can only be seen by believers." The sand stopped rising. The puzzle box opened in his hands, revealing a small crystal key. Across the chamber, his companions faced their own challenges. Nadia realized the star chart showed not what was, but what would be. Future constellations. Layla recognized that the broken chain of brotherhood symbols needed her family's missing emblem to complete it. Professor Hassan discovered that the lie in the text was that knowledge alone could bring understanding. As each solved their riddle, the sand receded. The jackal guardians returned to their original positions, eyes dimming. "The worthy may proceed," they intoned as a doorway opened in the far wall. The team regrouped, shaken but triumphant. "We were tested individually," Layla observed, "and as a group," Amun added, holding up the crystal key. My father couldn't solve his riddle because he was alone. We needed each other's perspectives. The newly revealed passageway glowed with gentle blue light. Above the entrance, hieroglyphics shifted to form words in their native languages. The worthy may proceed to the Hall of Ancestors. The unworthy will remain forever. As they stepped toward the new passageway, Amun felt a presence almost as if his father walked beside him, guiding his steps deeper into the impossible pyramid, floating among the clouds. The passageway led deeper into the pyramid, sloping gently upward rather than down as would be expected. The walls were lined with luminescent material that emitted soft light, eliminating the need for their flashlights. "The air is fresh," Nadia noted with surprise. "How is that possible, thousands of feet in the sky?" Professor Hassan ran his fingers along the wall inscriptions. "These texts speak of the breath of Shu, the god of air. Somehow this structure maintains its own atmosphere." The corridor widened abruptly into a vast circular hall that took their breath away. The walls were covered entirely with murals, not static paintings, but moving images that shifted and flowed like liquid television screens. "The Hall of Ancestors," Layla whispered, recognizing the description from her grandmother's stories. The animated murals depicted people from various time periods approaching the pyramid, undertaking trials and either succeeding or failing. Some scenes showed triumphant explorers gaining wisdom, while others revealed the grim fate of those who failed. Eternal imprisonment within the pyramid's walls. Amun moved closer to one section of the mural, drawn by a familiar figure. "Father," he gasped, recognizing the man depicted in the moving images. The mural showed Amun Khateb reaching the guardian chamber, solving several riddles, but ultimately failing the final test. The images then showed him leaving reluctantly, marking the walls with symbols as he departed, the very notes Amun had found in his father's journals. "He made it this far," Amun said, touching the wall. As his fingers contacted the surface, the images shifted, showing more detail of his father's journey. "He wasn't crazy after all." "Look at this section," Professor Hassan called from across the chamber. "It shows the pyramid's origins." The team gathered before a sequence of murals depicting an ancient pharaoh whose name was written in a cartouche none of them recognized. The moving images showed this forgotten king discovering a meteor of strange crystal, using it to construct a pyramid that existed simultaneously in the physical world and some other realm. The texts called him the traveler between worlds, Hassan translated. He discovered the pathway to Aru, the field of reeds, where gods dwell. The mural continued, showing how the pharaoh established the Brotherhood of Horus to protect his discovery, fearing it would be misused. The Brotherhood spread across continents, keeping the secret through millennia. "My family was part of the Brotherhood," Layla said, recognizing symbols that matched her grandmother's medallion. "We were tasked with recording the pyramid's appearances. As they moved around the chamber, the walls responded to their presence, showing scenes relevant to each person." Nadia found herself before images of ancient astronomers tracking celestial movements to predict the pyramid's manifestations. Professor Hassan's section revealed scholars throughout history who had glimpsed the truth but been dismissed as fantasists. At the center of the hall stood a pedestal with 7 crystal orbs arranged in a circle. An inscription beneath them read, "7 virtues open the path: wisdom, courage, truth, loyalty, sacrifice, vision and faith." "It's a test," Professor Hassan deduced. "The Hall of Ancestors shows those who came before to inspire or warn us about what lies ahead." Another section of mural caught Amun's attention. It showed Farid's ancestors attempting to breach the pyramid centuries earlier. Unlike other failed seekers, these men tried to force their way in using strange devices, resulting in catastrophic consequences. "Farid is repeating his family's mistakes," Amun realized. "They believe the pyramid contains power to be exploited rather than wisdom to be earned." Suddenly, the entire chamber trembled. Dust fell from the ceiling as a deep rumbling echoed through the structure. "What's happening?" Layla asked, alarmed. Nadia pointed to a moving mural showing Farid's team below, using equipment to direct energy beams at the pyramid's outer surface. They're attempting to force entry. The ceiling began slowly descending toward them, the murals now showing images of people being crushed in similar chambers. "We need to find the exit now," Hassan shouted, scanning the room. 3 doorways materialized in the walls, each showing different visions of what lay beyond. One revealed a treasury filled with gold. Another showed a library of ancient knowledge, and the third displayed a seemingly empty chamber with a single pedestal. "Which one is real?" Nadia asked frantically, as the ceiling continued its ominous descent. Amun studied the symbols around each doorway, comparing them to his father's notes. The treasury door had symbols of wealth and power. The library featured emblems of knowledge and wisdom. The empty chamber was marked with symbols of truth and essence. "The middle path is a deception," Amun concluded, as the ceiling reached the height of the doorways, "and gold is never the answer in these myths." He pointed to the third door. "That one. The simplest path is often the true one." As the ceiling touched the tops of the doorways, the team rushed through the third entrance. The passage sealed behind them instantly, the sound of stone meeting stone echoing in the new chamber they now faced. The chamber they entered defied comprehension. Floors curved upward to become walls, which bent impossibly to form ceilings. Water flowed in rivulets along surfaces, sometimes upward against gravity. Light sources had no discernible origin, casting multiple shadows from each person. "I don't understand what I'm seeing," Nadia whispered, her scientific mind struggling to process the impossibilities before her. As they ventured further into the chamber, reality itself seemed to warp around them. Professor Hassan reached toward what appeared to be a nearby column, only to find his hand passing through empty air. Meanwhile, Layla bumped into an invisible barrier where nothing appeared to exist. "The Chamber of Illusions," Professor Hassan said, recalling ancient texts. "Where nothing is as it seems." Without warning, the chamber shifted. The team members found themselves suddenly separated, each alone in what appeared to be different versions of the same space. Amun called out for the others, but his voice echoed strangely, returning to him distorted. Before him materialized a figure he recognized instantly. His father, looking disappointed. "You've come all this way only to fail where I failed," the apparition said, shaking its head. "You lack the vision to complete what I started." Amun stepped backward, heart racing. "You're not real," he insisted, though the figure looked solid enough. Across the chamber, though she couldn't see her companions, Layla faced an illusion of her grandmother. "Turn back now," the elderly woman warned. "Our family's duty was to guard the secret, not to seek it. You betrayed generations of guardians with your presence here." Professor Hassan found himself confronted by academic colleagues who had ridiculed his theories. They laughed and mocked, calling him delusional for believing in floating pyramids and ancient advanced knowledge. Nadia stood before a twisting landscape where physical laws seemed suspended. Mathematical equations floated in the air, solving themselves incorrectly. Stars moved in patterns that contradicted every astronomical principle she knew. "This isn't possible," she repeated, closing her eyes to block out the impossible sights. Isolated from the others, Amun reached for his father's pocket watch. As soon as he held it, the timepiece began spinning wildly, its hands rotating with impossible speed. Remembering his father's notes about illusions, he realized the watch's erratic behavior indicated falsehood. "You're not my father," Amun stated firmly, holding the watch toward the apparition. "You're an illusion created by the pyramid to test me." The figure wavered slightly, but persisted. "You've spent your life resenting me, blaming me for your failures," it accused. "Even now you follow my path, only to prove me wrong." The words struck deep, containing enough truth to hurt. Amun hesitated, doubt creeping in. Was this really just an illusion, or was the pyramid somehow channeling his father's actual thoughts? Elsewhere in the chamber, Layla clutched her Brotherhood medallion, which grew warm against her palm. The sensation gave her clarity. My grandmother would never ask me to turn back, she challenged her illusion. She always said knowledge was meant to be sought, not feared. Professor Hassan faced his academic critics with newfound confidence. Your mockery comes from ignorance. I stand in the very place you claimed didn't exist. Nadia opened her eyes, forcing herself to observe the chaotic mathematics surrounding her. These equations are deliberately wrong, she realized. They're testing whether I'll trust evidence over established principles. As each team member confronted their illusions, a strange object appeared before Amun, a mirror with a frame inscribed with hieroglyphics, spelling truth reflects not appearance but essence. The truth mirror's surface didn't show his reflection, but instead revealed the actual layout of the chamber. Through it, Amun could see his companions, each trapped in their own illusion. More importantly, he could see the hidden pathways connecting them. We need to synchronize our actions, he called out, hoping his voice would reach the others. The illusions are different, but we're in the same chamber. Guiding himself with the mirror, Amun navigated the deceptive space. When he reached where Nadia appeared to be, he found the barrier separating them. Nadia, can you hear me? Look beyond the mathematics. Find what doesn't change, no matter how the equations shift. One by one, he reached his companions, helping them pierce through their illusions. The pocket watch vibrated differently near real objects versus illusory ones, allowing him to guide them safely. When all four reunited, the chamber stabilized, the illusions dissolved, revealing a simple circular room with a central platform. On it rested the truth mirror, now showing all four of them, as they truly were, not merely their physical forms, but manifestations of their deepest qualities. We passed the test, Professor Han said with relief. The Chamber of Illusions reveals whether seekers can distinguish truth from deception. The mirror's surface rippled, then displayed an image of a mechanism with four elements arranged in balance. The next trial, Amun understood, and we face it together. A doorway opened in what had previously appeared to be solid wall, revealing a passage bathed in multicolored light. The passageway opened into a vast circular chamber, divided into four distinct sections, each quadrant pulsed with energy, corresponding to a classical element: earth, air, fire, and water. At the center stood a complex mechanism with four empty sockets arranged in a circle, the trial of elements, Professor Hassan identified, examining inscriptions on the central pedestal. Each seeker must master one element to proceed. The chamber trembled again, more violently than before. Dust showered from above. Farid's team is still trying to breach the pyramid, Nadia warned. The structure is becoming unstable. Hieroglyphics around the room glowed sequentially, forming a message. Four elements form all creation. Balance them to find the path. The team gathered around the central mechanism, which resembled an ancient astronomical device, with interlocking rings and counterweights. We need to divide the challenges, Amun decided. Each of us must master one element. The floor shifted beneath them, separating the team and guiding each person to a different elemental quadrant. Amun to earth, Nadia to air, Layla to fire, and Professor Hassan to water. In the earth section, Amun found himself on a platform of sand that constantly shifted and trembled. Stone blocks of various sizes levitated around him. An inscription explained his challenge: Earth seeks stability, create perfect balance amid chaos. Amun needed to arrange the floating stones to form a stable structure, despite the quaking ground. Each time he positioned a block, the tremors intensified, threatening to topple his construction. In her air quadrant, Nadia faced swirling vortices of visible wind currents. A golden key hung suspended at the center of a complex air pattern. Air demands precision, her inscription read. Navigate the invisible to claim what cannot be touched. She needed to map the air currents and find a path through them to retrieve the key without being thrown off course by powerful gusts. Layla stood before a wall of multicolored flames that formed intricate patterns. Fire responds to will, her challenge explained. Command the flame to reveal the path. She needed to mentally direct the flames to form specific brotherhood symbols, controlling the fire through concentration alone. Professor Han faced a pool of water covered with hieroglyphics that constantly rearranged themselves, flowing like liquid script. Water holds memory, his inscription stated. Rid what cannot be fixed in place. He needed to decipher a message from the flowing, ever-changing symbols, a task requiring both translation skills and the ability to recognize patterns in constant motion. As Amun struggled with his Earth challenge, he noticed symbols on the stone blocks that resembled markings on his father's pocket watch. Examining the watch more carefully, he discovered its circular face could be mapped to the configuration of blocks needed. The watch isn't just a timepiece, he realized. It's a key to the trials. Using the watch as a guide, Amun arranged the stones according to its pattern. Despite intensifying tremors, his structure held firm. When the final block locked into place, a crystal orb materialized, the Earth elemental orb. Across the chamber, Nadia observed the air currents, recognizing they followed astronomical patterns. These matched the constellation movements during equinoxes. She realized, calculating precisely, she timed her movements to coincide with shifts in the currents, reaching the suspended key and unlocking a container that held the air elemental orb. Layla, drawing on her family's brotherhood training, entered a meditative state to control the flames. As her concentration deepened, the fire responded to her thoughts, forming the ancient symbols in sequence. When the final symbol blazed before her, the flames parted to reveal the fire elemental orb. Professor Hassan struggled with his water challenge, the flowing hieroglyphics shifting too quickly for conventional translation. His strength failing, he leaned against the pool's edge, accidentally dropping his glasses into the water. To his surprise, the submerged lenses acted as a filter, slowing and stabilizing the symbols enough to read them. The message revealed an ancient prayer to Nun, the god of primordial waters. When Hassan recited it, the water stilled, and the water elemental orb rose to the surface. With all 4 orbs retrieved, the team regrouped at the central mechanism. Each orb needed to be placed in a specific socket corresponding to its element, but also in relation to the others. The configuration matters, Nadia observed, studying the mechanism. They must be arranged according to the ancient Egyptian cosmos. Amun noticed symbols on his pocket watch, matching those on the mechanism. The watch shows the pattern, he said, aligning it with the central device. Earth in the north, air in the east, fire in the south, water in the west. As they placed the final orb, Professor Hassan stumbled, clutching his chest. "I'm fine," he insisted when the others moved to help him. "Just the altitude and exertion." The mechanism activated when the orbs were correctly positioned. The elements flowed between them in perfect balance, creating a harmonious circuit of energy. The chamber transformed around them, walls becoming transparent to reveal a breathtaking view of stars and constellations as seen from above Earth's atmosphere. The ancients understood the cosmos in ways we've forgotten. Hassan whispered in awe. A new doorway materialized, framed by symbols representing the balanced elements. From beyond it came a soft golden light. "The elements bow to those who understand balance." A voice echoed through the chamber. "Proceed to your reward." As they stepped through the new doorway, the pyramid shuddered violently. Cracks appeared along the crystalline walls, golden light spilling through the fissures. "The structure is becoming unstable," Nadia warned. Farid's attempts to force entry are damaging the integrity. The passage opened into a hexagonal chamber with a domed ceiling depicting the night sky. Before they could explore further, a side panel slid open. A figure stumbled through, disheveled but unmistakable. "Farid," Amun gasped. "How did you get in?" Farid straightened his jacket, his usual composure shaken but intact. Behind him, 2 assistants carried equipment cases. "There are multiple entrances to the pyramid for those who know where to look," he explained. brushing dust from his sleeve. My family has sought this place for generations. Professor Han stepped forward. You're destabilizing the entire structure with your methods. You'll destroy it before anyone can learn its secrets. Farid's smile was cold. The Brotherhood isn't the only organization that has tracked this pyramid through history. My ancestors were part of a different tradition. He opened one of the cases, removing an object that made Hassan gasp, a golden key inscribed with hieroglyphics and topped with the Ankh symbol, the key of Anubis. Hassan whispered. It was believed lost during the Roman occupation. Not lost, Farid corrected. Protected by those who understood its true value, my family preserved it, waiting for the pyramid's return. The key seemed to absorb and reflect the chamber's light differently than ordinary metal would. Farid held it reverently, like a priest with a sacred relic. You've done well to reach this far, he acknowledged. Better than I expected from amateurs. But the trials ahead require resources and knowledge beyond your capabilities. What do you want, Farid? Amun demanded. The same thing you want, to reach the center of the pyramid. Farid stepped closer. But unlike you, I understand what's actually here. Not just knowledge or historical artifacts, but technology. Technology that could reshape our world. The pyramid trembled again, more violent. One of Farid's assistants checked a device and whispered urgently in his ear. We don't have much time, Farid continued. The pyramid will remain manifested for only 3 more hours before returning to wherever it exists between appearances. He extended his hand to Amun. I'm proposing a partnership. Your father's research combined with my resources. We can accomplish together what neither could alone. Why would we trust you? Layla challenged. You broke into Amun's apartment, followed us across the desert, and tried to force your way in here. Farid's expression hardened. Because I have this. He held up the key of Anubis. And because I know what awaits at the center, something your Brotherhood texts only hint at. The power of the gods isn't metaphorical. It's technological. He turned to each team member, tailoring his pitch. Professor, imagine rewriting every archaeology textbook with proof of advanced, ancient knowledge. Nadia, consider the astronomical calculations required to maintain a structure like this. Physics, beyond modern understanding. Layla, your family guarded this secret for generations. Don't you deserve to know what you were protecting? Finally, he addressed Amun. And you, vindication for your father. Proof he wasn't delusional. Professor Hassan stepped forward, studying the key. That's authentic, he confirmed, reluctantly. According to legends, it can bypass the pyramid's remaining trials. Precisely, Farid nodded. We can avoid the dangerous tests ahead and proceed directly to the central chamber. Layla's expression was conflicted. She moved closer to Farid, examining the key. My grandmother mentioned this. It belongs to those who believe the pyramid's power should be used, not merely guarded. Your grandmother was wiser than most Brotherhood members. Farid smiled. Amun noticed the subtle nod Layla gave him, a signal they had established during the journey. She was playing along to learn more. Show us how it works, she suggested to Farid. Farid approached a sealed doorway on the far side of the chamber, inserting the key into an almost invisible keyhole. This would normally require another trial to open, he explained, as he turned the key. The door slid open, revealing a passage beyond. You see, we can proceed directly. His words were cut short as the floor beneath them suddenly glowed red. Warning symbols flashed across the walls. What's happening? One of Farid's assistants cried. The pyramid is rejecting the unauthorized entry, Professor Hassan realized. The key bypasses the trials, but triggers defenses. The floor split open beneath them. Amun and Nadia fell through one opening, while Layla and Professor Hassan dropped through another. Farid and his assistants scrambled to avoid the widening chasm. The last thing Amun saw before darkness engulfed him was Farid clutching the key, his face contorted with rage and determination as the floor sealed above them, separating the group into the depths of the pyramid. Darkness enveloped Amun as he fell, the sensation of weightlessness ending abruptly as he splashed into cold water. He surfaced with a gasp, treading water in pitch blackness. "Nadia?" he called, voice echoing. Here came her response from nearby. "I can't see anything." Amun fumbled for his father's pocket watch, which began emitting a soft golden glow when he touched it. The light revealed they had fallen into a subterranean pool within a vast chamber. Crystalline formations studded the walls, each containing a subtle inner light. They swam to a stone platform, rising from the water. As they climbed out, the crystals around them brightened in response to their presence, illuminating the chamber with a blue-white glow. "Memory crystals," Nadia whispered, reaching toward the nearest formation. "I've read theories about them in ancient texts, crystalline structures that could somehow store information." When her fingers touched the crystal, it pulsed brightly. A three-dimensional image materialized above it. A man in early 20th century expedition gear, examining the pyramid's outer wall. "It's showing us someone who was here before," Amun realized. They moved deeper into the chamber, which was filled with thousands of crystals in various sizes. Each one they approached activated, displaying images of previous visitors, spanning different time periods: ancient Egyptian priests, Roman explorers, medieval Arabic scholars, and more recent expeditions. Amun was drawn to a cluster of crystals near the chamber's center. As he approached, one crystal glowed brighter than the others. When he touched it, the image that formed made his heart stop. "Father," he whispered. Amun Khateb appeared before them, his expression focused as he examined the chamber, taking notes and photographs. The image was so lifelike it seemed his father stood before him again. When Amun placed his hand fully on the crystal, something extraordinary happened. The image expanded, and suddenly the chamber filled with sound. His father's voice. "The memory crystals function as a repository of experiences," Ibrahim's voice explained, as if giving a lecture. "Anyone who enters the pyramid leaves an imprint that the crystals preserve. This chamber archives every visitor's journey, their discoveries, their failures, their insights." Nadia gasped. "It's not just showing us your father, it's playing back his actual thoughts and words from when he was here." They moved from crystal to crystal, containing his father's memories, piecing together his journey through the pyramid. Ibrahim had discovered that the pyramid's true purpose wasn't to house treasure or serve as a tomb, but to preserve knowledge from a civilization that predated dynastic Egypt. "The pyramid isn't just a structure," Ibrahim's recorded memory explained. "It's a library, laboratory, and sanctuary combined. The trials aren't merely to test worthiness, but to prepare visitors to understand what they'll find at the center." In one crystal, Ibrahim stood before a great doorway marked with royal cartouches. "I've reached the threshold of the central chamber, but I cannot proceed further. The final door requires blood of the royal line, descendants of the pharaoh who built this place. Without it, going further would trigger defenses that could destroy everything." The memory showed Ibrahim making a difficult decision. "I could attempt to force entry, but the risk is too great. Others seek this place with dangerous intentions. I must secure what I've learned and ensure only the right person can follow my path." He looked directly at the crystal, as if seeing across time to whoever would view his memory. "If you're seeing this and you carry my blood, know that the inheritance I leave is greater than any material wealth. The true power here isn't gold or technology, it's knowledge that must be used wisely." Amin's hands trembled as he processed his father's words. He knew he couldn't enter the central chamber. He left the map and watched, knowing someday I might follow and complete his work. Another crystal revealed a shocking truth. Ibrahim discovered that their family descended directly from the forgotten pharaoh who built the pyramid. The royal bloodline had continues, unrecognized through thousands of years. Only the pharaoh's blood can safely open the final chamber. Ibrahim's memory explained. All others who attempt entry face destruction. That's why the Brotherhood guarded the secret, not to hoard knowledge but to prevent catastrophe until the rightful heir returned. Suddenly, water began pouring into the chamber from unseen sources. The crystal platforms started submerging. The pyramid's defenses, Nadia warned, Farid's interference must be triggering systemic failure. Amun searched desperately among the remaining crystals, finding one final memory from his father. Ibrahim stood at what appeared to be a hidden doorway. "There's an emergency passage here," his father's image demonstrated, pressing specific symbols in sequence. "It leads upward toward the central chambers. I'm marking it in my journal, but only those who've seen these memories would recognize the symbols." The water rose rapidly around them, now reaching their waists. Amun spotted a section of wall matching his father's memory, with the same configuration of hieroglyphics. "There," he pointed. "That's our way out." They waded through rising water to the wall. Amun pressed the symbols in the sequence shown in his father's memory. A section of wall slid open, revealing a narrow passage sloping upward. "The abyss of memory preserves truth for those worthy to find it," Amun recited, recognizing the inscription above the doorway from his father's notes. "But drowns those who would steal it." They hurried into the passage as water continued flooding the crystal chamber behind them. The narrow passage twisted upward through the pyramid's interior, occasionally branching into multiple paths. Amun navigated confidently, guided by symbols that matched those in his father's memories. His pocket watch glowed brighter when they chose correctly, dimming when they faced a wrong turn. "Your father left breadcrumbs for you," Nadia observed, as they climbed. "He must have suspected you would someday follow his path." After what felt like hours of ascent, they emerged into a small antechamber. Professor Hassan sat propped against a wall, his breathing labored. A makeshift bandage wrapped his left arm. "Hassan," Nadia rushed to her grandfather's side. "What happened? Where's Layla?" "Separated," the professor managed between shallow breaths. Floor collapsed again. Farid triggered more traps. Layla pretended to join him, buying time. "You're injured," Amun noted with concern, examining the professor's arm. "Nothing serious," Hassan insisted unconvincingly. "Caught by falling debris when Farid used explosives to force a sealed door." Clause's, Nadia's expression darkened. "He's destroying irreplaceable history." Amun surveyed the chamber, noticing a device in the corner unlike anything they'd encountered so far. It resembled a metallic disc with concentric rings that could be rotated to align various symbols. "What's this?" he asked, approaching it carefully. "Brotherhood cipher," Hassan explained. "Communication device. Found it here. Layla showed me how her family used similar tools." He demonstrated how adjusting the rings created different configurations of symbols. Brotherhood members could send messages between chambers if multiple ciphers aligned to same frequency. Amun studied the device, recognizing symbols that matched patterns on his father's pocket watch. With careful adjustments, he aligned the rings to a specific configuration. The disc began humming softly, emitting a pale blue light. "Layla," he spoke toward the device. "Can you hear us?" Static crackled, then cleared. "Amun?" Layla's voice emerged, barely audible. "Is that you?" Relief washed over the group. "Yes, we're with Professor Hassan." "Where are you?" "Camper level, with Farid," she whispered, pretending to help him. "He believes I've betrayed you for access to my family's lost Brotherhood knowledge." "Are you safe?" Amun asked urgently. For now, Farid's focused on reaching the central chamber. He calls it the Treasury, says it contains technology beyond modern understanding. "What's his current position?" Hassan asked, strength returning to his voice. "Approaching the Hall of Judgment. Huge chamber with scales and feather motifs. He's using the key of Anubis to bypass trials, but each shortcut triggers defensive measures. The pyramid is becoming increasingly unstable." Nadia consulted her astronomical calculations. "We have less than 3 hours before the alignment ends, and the pyramid returns to wherever it exists between manifestations. If we're still inside when that happens." Amun began. We'd be trapped until the next alignment, a century from now. Hassan finished grimly. Through the cipher, Layla's voice became urgent. Farid plans to reach the treasury chamber within the hour. We need to converge there before him. Why not stop him now? Nadia questioned. He has armed men, Layla explained. And I've seen what's in his other equipment cases, explosives that could destroy the entire structure. Better to let him think I'm helping while gathering intelligence. Amun studied his father's notes, comparing them with the hieroglyphics surrounding them. There should be a direct passage from here to the upper levels, bypassing the Hall of Judgment. Hassan pointed to inscriptions above a sealed doorway, warning about the pyramid's most dangerous guardian ahead. The devourer of souls awaits those who bypass judgment. Amun's pocket watch suddenly began pulsing with golden light, its hands spinning rapidly before stopping at a specific orientation. When he held it toward the sealed door, corresponding symbols illuminated. It's pointing the way, he realized. Father's final gift, a key to the hidden passages. The door slid open, revealing a vertical shaft with handholds carved into the walls. From below came the sound of rushing water. The flood was rising through the pyramid's lower chambers. Professor Hassan attempted to stand, but stumbled, clutching his side. I've been hiding something, he admitted reluctantly. When the floor collapsed, injury worse than I let on. Possible internal bleeding. You can't climb in this condition, Nadia insisted, concern etching her features. I'll slow you down, Hassan acknowledged. The Brotherhood texts speak of this juncture. Sometimes a guardian must remain behind so others can proceed. We're not leaving you, Amun stated firmly. You must, Hassan countered. I'll monitor the cipher, coordinate your movements. This chamber is stable and sealed against the flooding. Complete what your father started, Amun. After a painful debate, they reached the only possible decision. Amun and Nadia would proceed upward, while Hassan remained to guide them via the Brotherhood cipher. The ancient blessing of Horus protect you, Hassan said formally, pressing something into Amun's hand, a small scarab amulet. This protected scholars for generations. Now it guards the pharaoh's descendants. As they began their ascent, Amun glanced back at the professor, who sat straight back beside the cipher, dignity intact, despite his injuries. The old academic nodded once, a gesture containing both farewell and encouragement. Find Layla, Hassan called as they climbed higher. And remember, in the treasury chamber, what appears to be wealth may be wisdom in disguise. From somewhere far below came the rumble of distant explosions. Farid's destructive progress continued, threatening the pyramid's very existence, and with it, the ancient knowledge it contained. The vertical shaft opened into a corridor adorned with hieroglyphics, depicting judgment scenes, souls being weighed against the feather of Maut. Amun and Nadia moved swiftly, guided by the pocket watch's increasingly urgent pulses. We must be nearing the treasury chamber, Amun whispered as they approached an immense set of golden doors. Faint sounds of struggle came from within. They entered cautiously. The chamber before them defied comprehension. Vast beyond the pyramid's apparent dimensions, with a domed ceiling that seemed to contain actual stars. But most astonishing was the treasure. Gold and jewels beyond imagination floated in mid-air, defying gravity. Artifacts from multiple civilizations hovered in perfect preservation. Statues, weapons, scrolls, and devices of unknown purpose. Some pieces rotated slowly, others remained fixed, all suspended without visible support. Impossible, Nadia breathed, her scientific mind struggling to process the scene. At the chamber's center stood a raised platform where a magnificent golden crown rested, the pharaoh's diadem, adorned with symbols of divine authority. Its centerpiece was a crystal that seemed to contain swirling galaxies within. Near the platform, Layla was locked in confrontation with Farid. His two assistants lay unconscious nearby, and Farid himself looked disheveled, a cut bleeding on his forehead. Ammi, Layla called when she spotted them. Stay back, he's activated the Guardian. Farid held the key of Anubis, attempting to approach the diadem. "You don't understand what we've found," he shouted. "This isn't just treasure, it's technology, advanced beyond anything in our world." The chamber trembled violently. From a pool of liquid gold near the patron, a massive figure began to rise, a sphinx-like creature formed of golden light, with the body of a lion and head of a human. Its eyes blazed with inner fire as it positioned itself between Farid and the diadem. "The guardian of the treasury," Layla explained, backing toward Amun and Nadia, triggered when Farid tried to claim the diadem without completing the trials. The light sphinx spoke, its voice resonating directly in their minds. "Those who seek the inheritance must be judged. Each must offer what they value most." Farid laughed bitterly. "More trials? I've come too far to be stopped now." He produced a small explosive device from his jacket. "Stand aside or I'll destroy everything here, including us." "Wait." Amun stepped forward. "We'll complete the trial properly." The guardian regarded them with ancient eyes. "Approach the scales of judgment," it commanded, materializing a massive golden balance before them. One by one, they were called to place something of value on the scales, to be weighed against the feather of truth. Nadia went first, removing her university identification and research credentials. "My academic future," she explained. "Everything I've worked toward." The scales balanced perfectly. The guardian nodded in approval. Layla approached next, placing her family's brotherhood medallion on the scale. "The legacy of my ancestors," she said. "My connection to generations of guardians." Again, the scales balanced. When Amun's turn came, he hesitated. What did he value most? His father's watch came to mind, but something told him a greater sacrifice was required. The guardian seemed to read his thoughts. "The heir must offer more than objects," it stated. "What truly matters cannot be held in hand." Understanding dawned on Amun. "I offer my claim to the inheritance," he declared. "Whatever power or wealth this pyramid contains, I renounce personal ownership of it. Knowledge should benefit all, not enrich one." He placed his open hands on the scale, empty, yet somehow weighing perfectly against the feather. The guardian's eyes flashed with approval. "The true heir understands. The inheritance was never gold or power, but responsibility." Farid watched this exchange with growing desperation. "Meaningless rituals," he spat. "While you play games, the alignment weakens. Soon the pyramid returns to the void." He lunged toward the diadem, key extended. "I didn't come this far to leave empty-handed." The guardian moved with impossible speed, interposing itself between Farid and the crown. "You have not been judged worthy." "I'm dying," Farid shouted, his composure finally shattering. "Terminal cancer. 6 months left. This technology is my only hope for survival." His revelation hung in the air. For a moment, Amun felt sympathy for the man's desperation. "The diadem can't save you," Layla said gently. "It's not meant for personal use." "You don't know that." Farid raised his explosive. "Stand aside or..." The guardian spoke again. "Final judgment approaches. The worthy may claim the inheritance, but only one may wear the pharaoh's diadem." The entire chamber trembled more violent. Parts of the ceiling began to crumble, pieces of floating treasure flickering like faulty holograms. "The alignment is weakening," Nadia warned. "We have perhaps 30 minutes before the pyramid disappears." The guardian turned to Amun. "Descendant of the builder, step forward. Place your offering on the altar to claim your birthright." A small altar appeared beside the platform. Amun looked down at his father's pocket watch, the one object connecting him to his past and guiding his journey. With reverence, he placed it on the altar. The watch levitated, spinning rapidly before exploding into particles of golden light that reformed around the diadem. The crown rose from its pedestal, hovering before Amun. "The heir may now claim the wisdom of ages," the guardian announced. Farid, seeing his opportunity slipping away, lunged toward Amun with a cry of desperation. In the chaos, The diadem settled onto Amun's head before he could react. Immediately his consciousness expanded beyond the chamber, beyond the pyramid, beyond time itself. Visions flooded his mind, possible futures, branching like rivers, knowledge from countless civilizations, secrets of creation and destruction. Through it all, one truth became clear. The pyramid's purpose was not to hoard knowledge, but to preserve it until humanity was ready, and that time had not yet come. The diadem pulsed against Amun's temples, each beat sending waves of knowledge through his consciousness. Through the overwhelming flood of information, he sensed a doorway, not physical but a pathway revealed only to the true heir. At the center of the treasury chamber floor, previously seamless, a circular section now displayed a subtly glowing outline. There, he pointed, his voice sounding strange to his own ears, the heart of the pyramid lies below. Layla and Nadia followed. As Amun approached the hidden doorway, when he stepped onto the circle, it descended smoothly like an elevator, carrying them downward. Farid, recovering from his failed lunge, scrambled to join them, but was too late. The floor sealed above him, his furious shouts fading. As they descended, the platform brought them into a chamber unlike any they had encountered. No gold or treasure here, only pure, white light, emanating from a perfect sphere hovering at the center. The walls were crystalline, inscribed with mathematical equations and astronomical charts of staggering complexity. The knowledge sphere, Amun whispered, the diadem providing understanding, the true treasure of the pyramid. As they approached, the sphere pulsed in response to the diadem. Images formed within its translucent surface. Cities of impossible architecture, devices that defied known physics, medical techniques that could cure any disease. It's a repository, Nadia realized, her scientific mind grasping the implications, not of gold, but of knowledge. The sphere projected scenes around them, the construction of the pyramid by a civilization that predated dynastic Egypt, using techniques lost to history. It showed how the structure was designed to exist simultaneously in multiple dimensions, appearing in the physical world only during specific alignments. The pyramid was never meant as a tomb or monument, Amun explained, the diadem translating concepts his mind could barely grasp. It's a vault, preserving the wisdom of a civilization that knew it was facing extinction. Layla watched in awe as the sphere displayed her ancestors, the original Brotherhood of Horus, sworn to protect the pyramid's secret until humanity was ready to use its knowledge responsibly. The $100 million treasure was never gold, she said, understanding dawning. It was this knowledge worth infinitely more than material wealth. Amun approached the sphere, drawn by the diadem's connection to it. Images flashed more rapidly. Medical cures for diseases thought incurable, energy sources that required no fuel, agricultural techniques that could transform deserts to gardens. With this knowledge, Nadia whispered, we could solve every crisis facing our world. Yet as Amun stood before the sphere, the diadem showed him something else. Visions of how such advanced knowledge could be misused. Weapons of unimaginable destruction, surveillance beyond any privacy, power concentrated in the hands of few. The sphere pulsed, presenting Amun with a choice. He could remove the knowledge sphere from the pyramid, bringing its contents to the modern world. He would become the wealthiest, most powerful person alive. Nations would compete for access to the technology it contained. Or he could leave it protected, releasing its wisdom gradually, allowing humanity time to develop the ethical framework needed to use it responsibly. What do we do? Layla asked, sensing his dilemma. Nadia studied the equations on the walls. This knowledge is generations ahead of our science. Releasing it all at once would cause chaos. Economic systems would collapse. Power structures would be overthrown overnight. The pyramid trembled violently. Through the diadem's connection, Amun sensed the alignment weakening. We have minutes before the pyramid returns to its dimensional pocket, he warned. The chamber began transforming, walls shifting as the structure prepared for transition. Above them they heard the distant sound of Farid's explosives. He was attempting to blast through to their location. Amun closed his eyes, consulting the wisdom provided by the diadem. His father's voice seemed to echo in his mind. The true inheritance is responsibility, not power. He reached a decision. Approaching the knowledge sphere, he placed his hands upon its surface. The diadem glowed brightly, establishing a connection between air and repository. "What are you doing?" Nadia asked. "The sphere responds to the pharaoh's bloodline," Amun explained, the diadem transferring understanding. "I can access the knowledge without removing the sphere from its protection." The sphere pulsed, a portion of its energy flowing into Amun through the diadem. His mind expanded further, accepting a fragment of the vast repository, enough to guide humanity forward without overwhelming it with too much, too soon. The connection complete, Amun stepped back. The diadem had merged partially with him, no longer a separate crown but a subtle circlet barely visible. The knowledge sphere returned to its normal state, secure in its chamber. "I can access specific knowledge when needed," he explained, "but the most dangerous secrets remain protected until humanity is ready." A section of wall opened, revealing an escape route. "The pyramid is returning to its dimensional state," Amun warned. "We need to leave now." As they hurried toward the exit, they heard a crash behind them. Farid had broken through, his face contorted with desperation as he stumbled into the chamber. "Wait," he called. "You can't leave this behind." But the knowledge sphere was already fading, the chamber dissolving as the pyramid began its transition between dimensions. Farid lunged toward the sphere, passing through its now intangible form and tumbling into the fading light. His scream echoed strangely, seeming to come from everywhere and nowhere, as he vanished, trapped between dimensions as the pyramid withdrew from the physical world. The trio ran through the escape passage, racing against the pyramid's imminent disappearance, carrying with them not gold, but something far more valuable. The escape passage twisted upward through the disintegrating pyramid. Walls shimmered in and out of solidity, doorways appeared and vanished, and gravity itself seemed increasingly unreliable. "The structure is returning to its interdimensional state," Amun explained, knowledge from the diadem flowing through him. "We have minutes at most." They raced through corridors that defied Euclidean geometry, sometimes running on walls or ceilings as gravitational orientation shifted. Behind them, chambers collapsed into nothingness, not destroying but phasing out of physical reality. "How do we get down once we reach the staircase?" Nadia asked breathlessly. "It disappeared after we climbed it." Amun's eyes glowed faintly as he accessed the sphere's knowledge. "There should be a control mechanism, a gravity pendulum near the entrance." The builders used it to ascend and descend. They emerged into the treasury chamber, now in chaos. Floating artifacts flickered like faulty holograms, some already transparent. The magnificent ceiling was dissolving into mist, stars winking out one by one. "This way," Amun directed, leading them toward a section of wall where a small alcove had appeared. Within it hung a crystalline pendulum, suspended in a field of blue energy. "The gravity pendulum," he explained, hands hovering around but not touching the device. "It controls localized gravitational fields. The builders used it to transport materials during construction." Nadia examined the mechanism with scientific curiosity, despite their dire situation. "Incredible. It's manipulating fundamental forces through methods we haven't even theorized." A crash from across the chamber interrupted them. Through a collapsing doorway stumbled Professor Hassan, leaning heavily on a staff fashioned from a broken pillar. "Hassan," Nadia cried, rushing to support her grandfather. "How did you get here?" Followed, "Alternative route. The cipher showed me," he gasped, clearly exhausted. "Couldn't let you face the final challenge alone." The reunion was cut short as the chamber shuddered violently. Massive blocks began falling from the increasingly insubstantial ceiling. "We need to leave now," Layla urged, eyeing the dissolving floors. Amun focused on the gravity pendulum, the diadem guiding his understanding. By adjusting its orientation, he could create a controlled gravitational field, essentially a path of normal gravity through the chaotic space of the disappearing pyramid. "I can establish a safe route down," he explained, carefully manipulating the pendulum. "But it will only last briefly." As he worked, a figure emerged from the shadows behind a partially dissolved column. Farid, somehow still alive, his clothing torn and face bloodied. "It's not over," he snarled, staggering forward. "The knowledge, it belongs to everyone, not just you." "Farid," Layla said, with genuine pity. "The pyramid is collapsing. Come with us if you want to live." But Farid's eyes had a strange, distant quality. "I've seen it," he whispered, "in the void between dimensions. There's more, so much more." Before anyone could react, he turned and ran deeper into the dissolving pyramid, disappearing through a doorway that vanished moments later. "He's lost his mind," Hassan observed grimly. "The void exposure affects human consciousness." Amun completed his adjustments to the pendulum. A visible pathway of blue energy formed, extending from the chamber downward through the open space where the staircase had been. "Our way out," he announced. "But we must move quickly. It won't last long." They began their descent, stepping onto the energy path which felt solid despite its appearance. Far below, the desert floor waited, the bizarre atmospheric conditions created by the pyramid already dissipating. Halfway down, disaster struck. A massive section of the pyramid's outer facing phased out of existence, destabilizing the gravity pendulum's field. The blue pathway flickered dangerously. "Run!" Amun shouted, sensing the imminent failure. They raced downward as the path disintegrated behind them. Professor Hassan struggled to keep pace, his injuries slowing him despite Nadia's support. "Leave me," he urged them. "Save yourselves, no one gets left behind," Amun insisted, knowledge flowing from the diadem. He adjusted the ethereal circlet, redirecting its energy to temporarily stabilize the section of path beneath Hassan's feet. With a final desperate sprint, they reached a point 20 feet above the desert floor as the last of the path vanished. They jumped, Amun using his newfound abilities to create a cushioning field that allowed them to land safely. From the ground, they watched in awe as the magnificent golden pyramid faded from existence. Its outline remained briefly visible as a shimmer in the air, then disappeared completely. The sky returned to normal, clouds dispersing, leaving no evidence that an impossible structure had ever floated there. "Gone," Layla whispered, "back to whatever dimension it inhabits between alignments." "Not entirely gone," Amun replied, touching his temple where the diadem had merged with him. "Part of it remains here and will guide us." They stood in silence, 4 figures alone in the vast desert, witnesses to a wonder no one would believe. Above them, the stars realigned into familiar patterns. The special astronomical configuration ended. Nadia checked her instruments. "The alignment is over. According to the calculations, 100 years until it appears again," Amun finished, knowledge flowing unbidden to his mind. As they gathered their remaining supplies for the journey back to civilization, Amun felt a strange sensation, a momentary connection to something distant. For just an instant, he glimpsed Farid, still within the pyramid, as it existed in its other dimension, surrounded by ancient knowledge, but forever separated from the physical world. Then the connection faded, leaving only the certainty that their journey had irrevocably changed them all. 2 weeks later, life in Cairo had resumed its normal rhythms for most people. For Amun and his companions, nothing would ever be the same. News reports had briefly mentioned strange cloud formations over the western desert, with some tourists claiming to have seen a golden mirage that meteorologists dismissed as an unusual atmospheric phenomenon. A wealthy collector named Farid Nazari was reported missing after an expedition, prompting a search that found only abandoned vehicles. Amun sat at a small desk in his apartment, which no longer felt cramped despite being unchanged physically. His perspective had shifted. Material space seemed less significant after experiencing the impossible dimensions of the pyramid. Before him lay a blank journal he had purchased the day after their return. He had intended to document their adventure, but found himself hesitant, unsure how to capture such extraordinary events in ordinary words. When he finally touched pen to paper, something remarkable happened. As he wrote his first sentence, additional text appeared on the page, not in his handwriting but in ancient hieratic script that somehow he could now read. The journal was connecting to the knowledge he had absorbed from the sphere, expanding on his recollections with additional information. He called the others immediately. Within an hour they gathered in his apartment, examining the journal with a mixture of awe and scientific curiosity. "It's responding to your connection with the knowledge sphere," Professor Hassan concluded, his health remarkably improved since their return. The injuries that had seemed life-threatening in the pyramid had healed with unusual speed. "The diadem maintains a link even across dimensions," Nadia theorized, examining the journal through a magnifying glass. "When you attempt to record information, it supplements your knowledge." Layla traced the hieratic script with her finger. Some of these symbols match Brotherhood records. Others are entirely unknown, perhaps from the pre-dynastic civilization that built the pyramid. Over the following days they began to realize the full implications of their experience. Amun discovered he could recall specific knowledge from the sphere when needed, not everything at once, which would overwhelm his mind, but targeted information in response to specific questions or problems. The first demonstration of this ability came unexpectedly. While walking through his neighborhood, Amun encountered a child suffering from a respiratory condition that local doctors had been unable to diagnose. Without conscious thought, knowledge flowed from the merged diadem, a treatment method unknown to modern medicine, but practiced by the ancient builders. Using herbs available in local markets, Amun created a remedy that brought immediate relief. Word spread quickly through the neighborhood. People began appearing at his door seeking help for various ailments. Amun found himself able to diagnose and treat conditions that baffled conventional doctors. Professor Hassan observed this development with concern. "Be careful," he cautioned during one of their regular meetings. "Drawing too much attention could be dangerous. There are organizations that would exploit your connection to the sphere, including what remains of Farid's network," Layla added. "His family has influenced Egyptian politics for generations." Strangely, despite access to knowledge that could make him incredibly wealthy, Amun's financial situation remained modest. He charged nothing for his healing, accepting only small gifts of food or services from grateful neighbors. "Why not use your knowledge to patent new technologies?" Nadia asked once. "You could revolutionize entire industries." Amun shook his head. "The knowledge isn't meant to enrich one person. The sphere showed me that introducing too much, too quickly would destabilize society. It must be gradual, building on existing understanding." Together, they formed a plan. Nadia established a research foundation, ostensibly studying theoretical applications of ancient Egyptian mathematical principles. Through this legitimate academic channel, they could introduce concepts from the sphere gradually, disguised as rediscovered ancient wisdom rather than otherworldly knowledge. Professor Hassan began writing papers that presented carefully selected insights from the pyramid as speculative archaeological theories. The academic community largely dismissed his work as creative interpretation, exactly as intended. Layla reached out to scattered Brotherhood descendants, forming a modern network dedicated to protecting Amun while helping distribute beneficial knowledge. She discovered that certain families across the Mediterranean had maintained fragments of the original Brotherhood teachings through generations. Not everyone who had mocked Amun previously noticed the change in him. Some saw only that the odd, impoverished son of the crazy archaeologist had somehow gained respect in the neighborhood. Others, particularly those who had known his father, observed a newfound confidence and wisdom that reminded them of Ibrahim in his prime. One evening, as Amun visited his father's grave, he placed a small stone pyramid he had carved on the headstone. As he stood in silent communion, a breeze stirred the desert sand, forming momentarily into a perfect pyramid shape before dispersing. Whether coincidence or connection, Amun felt his father's approval across the boundary between worlds. The journey Ibrahim had begun was continuing through his son, fulfilling a legacy greater than either could have imagined. That night, Amun dreamed of the pyramid, not as they had found it, but as it would appear in the future. He saw it materializing a century hence, waiting for the next worthy seeker who would continue the chain of knowledge preserved across millennia. 1 year after the pyramid vanished, Amun stood in the desert outside Cairo, surrounded by rows of experimental crops. What had once been barren sand now sprouted with vibrant green shoots, plants engineered using knowledge from the sphere to thrive in arid conditions with minimal water. The latest soil samples show continued improvement. Nadia reported, examining data on her tablet. The microorganism network is self-sustaining now. Amun nodded, kneeling to examine a particularly robust seedling. The research station they had established was modest. A few prefabricated buildings, some basic equipment, and 10 acres of test fields, but its impact was beginning to spread throughout the region. Local farmers who had initially scoffed at the crazy professor and his followers now visited regularly, asking questions about the drought-resistant crops that required a fraction of the normal water. Agricultural officials from the government had come twice, departing with samples and puzzled expressions. Professor Hassan emerged from the main building, moving with the energy of a much younger man. His near-death experience in the pyramid had somehow rejuvenated him, though he attributed it simply to having purpose again. The Japanese agricultural delegation arrives tomorrow, he reminded them. The first international interest in our work, and they have no idea it comes from a floating pyramid, Layla added with a smile, joining them from the irrigation control station she monitored. She had transformed as well over the years. The cafe owner's daughter had become the logistics director of their growing operation, coordinating between the research team and the families she had connected with throughout the Mediterranean. Descendants of the original brotherhood, now dedicated to helping distribute the knowledge safely. In Cairo, Amun's former mockers regarded him with a mixture of confusion and respect. The man they had ridiculed for inheriting just $2 had somehow established a legitimate research operation. Though he remained modest in his personal life, still living in the same small apartment, still wearing simple clothes, his status in the community had transformed completely. "They're calling you the desert healer in the southern neighborhoods," Layla informed him. "After you treated those children with respiratory conditions from the factory pollution," Amun shook his head. "I'm not the healer. The knowledge is." That evening, the team gathered in the main building for their weekly assessment. The walls were covered with charts tracking crop yields, water usage, and soil regeneration, a scale model of their next project. A sustainable community designed to thrive in desert conditions occupied the central table. "Sometimes I still can't believe it," Nadia admitted, looking around at what they had accomplished. "A year ago, I was measuring stars, not crop yields. Knowledge finds its proper application," Professor Hassan replied, quoting one of the phrases that had appeared in Amun's journal. Amun opened that same journal, now filled with hundreds of pages of insights from the sphere, combining his observations with ancient wisdom. Each entry began with his own thoughts, then expanded organically with additional information flowing through his connection to the diadem. Today's entry concerned their most ambitious project yet. From his pocket, Amun removed a small clay pot containing a single seed, different from any plant known to modern botany. "The first seed," he announced, placing it carefully on the table. According to the sphere, it was the initial species developed by the pyramid builders to transform their environment. The seed appeared ordinary, brownish, roughly the size of a lentil, but the knowledge Amun had accessed indicated its extraordinary properties. It could extract moisture from air too dry for conventional plants, fix nitrogen without additional fertilizer, and establish symbiotic relationships with neighboring species. "We'll plant it tomorrow at dawn," he decided. the beginning of the next phase. Later, under a sky brilliant with stars, Amun stood alone at the edge of their fields. In his hand he held the framed $2 inheritance, now mounted in a simple frame in his office as a reminder of beginnings. He sensed rather than saw a shimmer in the night sky, a momentary geometric shape among the stars, visible perhaps only to him through his connection to the diadem. The pyramid existed still, in its dimensional pocket, waiting for the next alignment a century hence. From his journal, Amun had learned that the knowledge was never meant to remain sealed away forever. Each appearance of the pyramid was an opportunity for humanity to receive what it was ready to understand. His father had recognized this, preparing the way without being able to complete the journey himself. In the distance, lights from Cairo illuminated the horizon, the city where he had once been mocked and pitied, now the starting point for transformation. The true inheritance had never been money or even the pyramid itself, but the responsibility to use knowledge wisely across generations. Amun sensed that somewhere, perhaps in a dimension adjacent to their own, Farid still wandered the halls of the vanished pyramid, seeking power rather than understanding. The man had chosen his path, just as Amun had chosen. Tomorrow he would plant the first seed in a ceremony combining ancient wisdom with modern science. The desert would bloom again, as it had millennia ago when the pyramid builders first transformed this land. The cycle continued, wisdom flowing across time like a river beneath the desert sands, invisible on the surface but bringing life wherever it touched. From the frame in his hand to the fields before him, to the stars above, the journey had come full circle. The inheritance, seemingly worthless, had proved beyond measure.